So in this video, I want to go over a very simple technique to determine the limiting reagent of any chemical reaction. Because we know if we have this chemical reaction, and let's say we have 3 moles of this reactant, and let's say we have 5 moles of this reactant, we know these two reactants are going to react. We know they're going to react forming these products. However, we know one of these reactants are going to run out before the other reactant, which essentially will halt the reaction and stop the reaction from occurring. So, however, which reactant is going to act as the limiting reagent? Which reactant, if we have 3 moles of this reactant and 5 moles of this reactant with this balanced equation, which reactant is going to be the limiting reagent and run out first? And usually this might sound very daunting and requiring a lot of complex analysis and critical thinking. However, here's a very simple technique to determine which is the limiting reagent. All you do is you take each reactant and you take the number of moles in that reactant and you divide it by the coefficient in the balanced equation. And you do that for each reactant. So you would also do it for this reactant. You would take the number of moles and divide it by the balanced coefficient in the coefficient in the balanced equation. So let's do that. For this reactant, we know we have 3 moles. So we know we have 3 moles. And again, we know we take the number of moles and we divide it by the coefficient in the balanced equation. So we see this is a balanced equation and the coefficient is 1. So this is 1. And we would also do that for this reactant. We would take the number of moles that we have. So we have 5 moles. And again, we would divide it by the coefficient in the balanced equation. And we know for this balanced equation, this reactant has a 5 coefficient. So then you do 3 divided by 1, so that gives you 3. And then you do 5 divided by 5, and that gives you 1. And then now all you do is you see which number is lower. You see this number is lower, so this is a smaller number, so therefore this is the limiting reactant. This is the limiting reagent. This oxygen is going to run out. We're going to run out and use all these 5 moles of oxygen, and this is going to run out first, and then we're going to be left with some C3H8. And again, you might think, if we have 5 moles of this and 3 moles of this, why would this run out first? Well, again, we can see in the balanced equation, there are 5 moles of O2 reacting for every 1 mole of this C3H8. So again, so this is a very simple technique. This is a very simple operation. You take all your reactants, and if we had another reactant, you would just take that third reactant, and you would do this same process, where you take the number of moles that you have and divide it by the coefficient in the balanced equation. And again, whichever gives you the smallest number is the limiting reagent. So we see 1 is less than 3, so we know 1 is the smallest, and it's important to remember it's the smallest number that is the limiting reagent. So again, so this tells us that this oxygen will be the limiting reagent, and it's just that straightforward. It's just that simple. Just do this very simple operation, and then you always know. So let's do another quick example. So let's say we have carbon monoxide reacting with oxygen, forming CO2. And we know this reaction would have a balanced equation, would have 2 of these, 1 of these, and 2 of these. So let's say we have this chemical reaction, and let's say we have 6 moles of this carbon monoxide, and let's say we have 7 moles of this oxygen. Which of these reactants are going to be the limiting reagent? Well, again, we take the number of moles and divide it by the coefficient in the balanced equation, and we do that for both reactants. So for this one, again, we have 6 moles, and the coefficient in the balanced reaction is 2. And then for this reactant, we have 7 moles, and then the coefficient in the balanced equation is 1. So this gives us 3, and this gives us 7. So 3 is less than 7, so therefore we know in these conditions with these concentrations for this balanced equation, carbon monoxide would act as the limiting reagent. These would react, and we would run out of carbon monoxide first, and we would have some O2 left, and therefore once we run out of carbon monoxide, we wouldn't be able to do the reaction anymore, so therefore carbon monoxide is the limiting reagent.